My name is Dr. Ellis Ward. I'm a retired entomologist. Spent 40 years studying insects, mostly the kind that keep people up at night. I've held rare species in the palm of my hand, watched colonies rise and fall under the glass of a terrarium, and even consulted for government agencies when they needed answers on bites, infestations, or the kind of bugs that shouldn't exist. But nothing prepared me for what happened on Flight 709. It was a red-eye out of Tokyo, half filled. I prefer it that way. Less noise, less fuss. I was returning from a conference, a forgettable affair on beetle exoskeletons, and I just wanted to sleep the long ride home to San Francisco. The boarding was slow. A crying baby toward the back set the mood. The kind of cry that wasn't from hunger or discomfort. No, it was fear. You can hear the difference if you've lived long enough. I sat in seat 32A, window side. My usual preference. No one beside me, just a quiet man across the aisle flipping through a tattered paperback. He didn't look up even once. Then I saw it, through the window. A large, unmarked crate being rolled toward the cargo hold. It wasn't in the original loadout. I'd noticed those earlier, habit from my consulting days. This one was different. No tags, no stamps. It glistened with a thin film of condensation, as if it had just been taken out of a freezer. And it was dripping. I wish I had stood up then, asked someone, done something. We took off as usual. Cabin lights dimmed. The engines rumbled a familiar lullaby. Passengers settled in with eye masks and headphones. That's when I noticed the webs. Thin, barely visible strands near the overhead bins. Not unusual at first glance. Planes are cleaned in a hurry. But these weren't dusty or old. They shimmered fresh. New. Like silk just spun. Still, I told myself not to be paranoid. Jet lag plays tricks on the mind. An hour passed. Maybe more. I was beginning to nod off when I felt it. A tickle. Not on my arm or leg, but in the air. In the atmosphere. Like the cabin itself was shifting. Breathing. And then I heard it. Software. Barely audible. Scrit, scrit, scrit. It wasn't metal. Wasn't wind. It was the sound of many legs, moving in sync, just above the ceiling panels. I leaned forward, ears perked, eyes wide. And I whispered to myself, so only I could hear it. And that's when the crawling began. There's a specific kind of silence on a red-eye flight. Not peaceful. No, it's strained. Like everyone's pretending to sleep, but their minds are still restless, wandering. The baby toward the back had stopped crying sometime after takeoff, but the silence it left behind was heavier. I must have drifted off, briefly, because the clatter of the drink carts startled me awake. I checked my watch. 2:17 a.m., local time, somewhere over the Pacific. The aisle lights cast soft halos on the floor, and the flight attendant, Rebecca, her badge had said, was midway through serving row 20-something. She never made it past 28. I watched her, smiling politely to a man in a business suit, handing him a small bottle of water. Then, as if swallowed by the dark, she disappeared. Just like that. 1 second there, next second, gone. No sound, no struggle. I blinked, adjusted my glasses. The cart was there, stuck in the aisle, rolling just slightly with the motion of the plane. Her little notebook fluttered to the floor like a dead leaf. I unbuckled and stood, the first in the cabin to react. "Rebecca?" I called out softly, not wanting to wake anyone. No answer. A few rows back, the baby started crying again. That cry, that same terrified primal wail. I stepped carefully down the aisle, peering into the galley where she would have gone. What I found wasn't her, just a smear of red along the wall. Fresh, still wet. No body, no drag marks, just blood. I backed away slowly, but others were waking now. Someone called out. A woman asked what was going on. And that's when the itching began. It started with the man across the aisle, same one who hadn't looked up during boarding. He began scratching at his leg, hard, desperate. A teenager pulled at her hoodie, yelping about something crawling down her neck. I felt it too, just for a second, a whisper of movement across my ankle. And then I saw it. skittering along the cabin wall. Black. Hairy. The size of a clenched fist. Not natural. Not right. It disappeared into a ventilation grate near the galley. My stomach dropped. That's when the intercom buzzed. A crackle. Then the captain's voice. Flat, controlled, terrified beneath the surface. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We're currently dealing with a poisson situation. Emergency protocols are being enacted. Please stay in your seats. A mechanical thunk echoed through the plane as the emergency doors locked from the cockpit. Every entrance, every exit, sealed. And then, turbulence. But not normal turbulence. Number It was targeted. Like something massive shifted inside the cargo hold. Like the plane wasn't flying through a storm. It was carrying one. The lights flickered, and in that dim glow, I saw something twitch inside the overhead bin above seat 31C. I've been around spiders all my life, studied them, lived with them. I've had tarantulas crawl up my arm and recluse spiders sleep a foot from my pillow in the name of research. But I've never seen what I saw that night on Flight 709. And God help me. I pray I never do again. It began with a sound, not loud, not immediate, but persistent. Like thousands of nails clicking across a steel plate, tiny, synchronized taps coming from everywhere. Then the vents began to rattle. The first one burst open above row 17. A flood of black bodies poured out like a nightmare waterfall. Legs, fangs, skittering across seats, over trays, into hair, under clothing. People screamed. One man, a big guy in a yellow hoodie, stood up to swat them away and was immediately covered. I saw him stumble down the aisle, arms flailing, then fall. He never got back up. By the time I reached him minutes later, all that remained was a twitching cocoon. More vents cracked open, spilling horrors into the cabin. I ducked back into my seat, pulling my coat tight, scanning for something, anything, to defend myself. The overhead lights blinked rapidly, flashing glimpses of chaos. Passengers trampling over each other, slipping on spilled drinks and blood. Then the oxygen masks dropped, and for a moment, there was a strange pause, a split second of hope, until people realized some masks were stuffed with webbing. Others had small dead spiders curled up inside. One woman screamed so hard she passed out, the mask still dangling from her face, silk dripping from the hose. That's when I knew. This wasn't a natural outbreak. This wasn't cargo escape or foreign contamination. These spiders, these creatures, were made. I remembered something buried in the back of my mind. A report I'd read back in '79, during my brief consulting with a government lab. It was a case buried under layers of red tape. Bioengineered arachnids, designed for tactical deployment. Faster, smarter, capable of coordinated strikes. The project was scrapped, or so we were told, after a test colony escaped containment in a facility in the Nevada desert. But these were the same breed. I recognized the eyes, the movement, the unnatural cooperation. They hunted not like insects, but like soldiers. The spiders were herding us, driving us. Passengers tried to lock themselves in the lavatories. I saw a mother slam the door shut, just as a wave of spiders crept beneath the crack. She tried to stuff paper towels along the floor, but the screams that followed still haunt me. The cockpit was next. A group of passengers, desperate and brave, made a run for it. I don't know if they made it. All I remember is the pounding on the reinforced door, and then silence. Have you ever felt heat that wasn't real? Not from the sun or a fire, but something living. Something breathing all around you. That's what it felt like as Flight 709 climbed higher into the dark. The cabin was slowly cooking, not from engine trouble or atmospheric pressure, but from the spiders. They were nesting. By now, the plane was unrecognizable. Silk draped from overhead bins. Seats bulged with strange pulsing sacs. And the passengers, those who hadn't escaped or been cocooned, sat paralyzed in terror. You could barely move without hearing the crunch of legs underfoot. Corpses hung in their chairs like grim marionettes, wrapped tight, some twitching, some hollowed out. I recognized one, A man who had tried to pry open the emergency hatch earlier. He was now webbed to the ceiling, head tilted unnaturally, eyes wide open. I made my way down the aisle with a broken metal tray in hand like a shield, carefully stepping between sticky webs. That's when I heard the faintest rustling beneath a row of seats, almost drowned out by the ambient hissing of the ventilation system. And I found her. A child, no older than 7, huddled beneath seat 38D, clutching a half-empty can of bug spray like it was her only lifeline. Her face was streaked with tears and spider bites. She didn't speak. She just looked at me like she already knew I couldn't save her. I knelt down and whispered, "Don't move." Then I slowly took her hand. I glanced toward the cargo hold. That's when the theory struck me, clear and horrible. The crate. The one I saw before takeoff. It wasn't just illegal cargo. It wasn't just a specimen. It was a queen. Something bred in secrecy, transported without regulation, meant for the bio-trade black market. A living weapon, sealed in freezing stasis, until some fool defrosted it mid-flight. As I helped the child into the row beside me, flashes from my old life hit me like turbulence. Back in the 90s, I was shown confidential footage. Military trials of spiders trained to respond to frequencies, to hunt in swarms, to obey chemical cues. We thought they were shut down after they lost control of a nest in Arizona. I should have known better. These things never get shut down. They get hidden. Suddenly, the plane jolted. Not like turbulence. Heavier. The floor beneath us shifted, like something massive had just repositioned in the belly of the aircraft. The child gripped my arm. Above us, webs quivered. Far off, near the cockpit, there was a low, vibrating hiss. Whatever was down there, it wasn't done growing. There comes a moment, just before the body gives in, where the mind clears. Where all the chaos, all the screaming, all the blood and silk and crawling horror fades. For me, that moment came somewhere over the Bering Sea in the flickering dark of Flight 709, when I realized we were never supposed to survive this flight. The captain was already dead. We found him cocooned to the back wall of the cockpit, lungs likely filled with venom. His eyes were wide open. His hands still clutched the yoke. He died trying to keep us airborne. But the autopilot had been overridden, locked to a course we couldn't change. The plane wasn't flying itself. Something else was flying it. That's when we saw her. The Queen. She was unlike anything I'd ever studied, or even imagined. The size of a German shepherd, maybe bigger. Her abdomen shimmered like obsidian glass, and she pulsed, like she was breathing through every limb. Nesting in the cockpit, surrounded by webbed-over panels and thick, silk-strung eggs the size of grapefruits. She watched us. She knew we were coming. There were 5 of us left. Me, the child with the bug spray, a young man who had burned his arms fighting off the first wave, a flight attendant named Mark, and a woman with blood on her sleeves who hadn't spoken a word since her husband disappeared in the lavatory. We knew what had to be done. The plan was insane, but insanity had already been airborne for hours. We'd go through the service hatch, crawl through the belly of the plane, reach the cargo hold, and destroy the nest. If we could start a fire, rupture the fuel lines, we might force an emergency descent. Might. We armed ourselves with broken metal trays, shattered liquor bottles, anything we could wrap in cloth and set alight. And we moved. The spiders sensed us. They didn't attack. Not yet. They watched. They waited. Hurting us again. Testing us. Like the whole cabin was their hunting ground and we were just another maze run. As we reached the cargo bay, the Queen's vibrations grew louder. The walls throbbed. The temperature spiked. We found the crate, splintered open, soaked in fluid, silk trailing out in long strands, and around it, eggs. Hundreds, maybe thousands. The walls were layered with silk and husks, half-eaten rodents, birds, and smaller things. Things that might have been spiders, or something else entirely. We lit the first flame. The fire caught quickly, greedily, licking up the webbing like it had been soaked in kerosene. The spiders screeched, a sound I didn't know they were capable of. Not from mouths, from bodies. Vibrating, hissing, enraged, they swarmed. We fought. We burned, we screamed. I lost track of who fell where. I only remember Mark's final yell as he shoved open a side panel to vent smoke and was yanked away by a wave of legs. The pressure shifted. The walls buckled. One window shattered. Explosive decompression. The air screamed from the cabin. Oxygen masks whipped like torn flags. I clung to the child, bracing us in the metal brackets of the cargo frame as the world outside became howling sky. The fire danced in zero gravity. The plane sank, fast. And in those final moments, as darkness wrapped around us and the spiders screamed with it, I thought, this plane isn't going to land. It's going to crash. And maybe that's the only way this ends. I woke up to the sound of gulls. That and the sting of salt water in my eyes. Somewhere beneath me, the wing of Flight 709 bobbed like a broken raft, torn from the fuselage and slick with fuel. I was still strapped to part of a seat, my hands swollen with spider bites, lips cracked from dehydration, and legs numb from the cold. Beside me, drifting in and out of consciousness, was the girl. Still clinging to that half-empty can of bug spray, like it was a teddy bear. 16 hours we floated, drifting somewhere off the coast of Alaska. I don't remember much of that time, just cold, pain, and the dull echo of things I could no longer see but still felt. Eyes in the water, legs brushing my ankles. A shape beneath the surface, too smooth, too still. When the Coast Guard found us, I tried to speak. The only words I remember getting out were, "They're in the vents." They didn't understand. How could they? When the search crews located the wreckage, it was half submerged, cracked open like a rib cage. Bodies recovered were cocooned, preserved in silk, but there were no spiders, no webbing, no trace. They said the crash was due to a mechanical failure, an electrical fire, they claimed. Something about navigation systems going haywire mid-flight. Engine misfire. They wrapped it up quickly, too quickly. I tried to tell them. I begged them to investigate the crate, but it had vanished, just like the queen, just like the eggs. In the months that followed, I was interviewed, evaluated, sedated. They said I'd suffered severe trauma, hallucinations, delirium from exposure and shock. The girl was put into protective custody. She wouldn't speak to anyone, except me. And what she told me, she said the spiders talked to each other. She said they whispered through the walls. She said they were still alive. Now, I live alone, near the sea. I haven't stepped on a plane since. I don't even ride buses anymore. My doors are lined with boric acid. My vents are sealed. My nights are filled with dreams I can't wake up from. Because deep down, I know the truth. That wasn't just a nest.